Welcome to the Breath of Fresh Air Dental Podcast. Whether you're a seasoned practice owner, a new dentist, or an office manager looking to enhance your skills, this podcast is for you. Our friendly and knowledgeable hosts are here to answer your burning questions, address common pain points, and provide practical solutions to help you overcome any obstacles you may face. Our hosts, Amanda DeMoura and Sarah Hamlin, bring to the table lengthy careers in both clinical dentistry and practice administration. They now preside as the CEO and COO of Essential Dental Services.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Breath of Fresh Air Dental Podcast. I'm Amanda DeMoura.
And I'm Sarah Hamlin.
And today we are going to talk about top tips for clean and successful claim submission. But first, Sarah, your kids are out of school. Summer has arrived. It's reached 80 degrees in your neck of the woods and 100 in mine.
Yeah, so if you guys hear any small voices or footsteps in the background, I'm sorry about that. But yeah, just like many other working parents, I'm navigating the home for the summer life now. Fun times. You'll be there soon, Amanda. You'll be there soon.
I was just asking her the other day, like, oh my gosh, I just realized school's almost out. Like, what are these children doing all summer? Because both Sarah and her husband work from home.
Yep. And also, we're also kind of late. I feel like for our schools are going kind of late. Like most other schools, I think, across the country, all my other friends of other places have been out for a little while already. So we're finally out for the summer, and yeah, our weather is finally summery, so the kids were out in the splash pad. They've been, into everything in the house that they probably shouldn't be in and more, so it's been a pretty typical summer break so far, I would say.
Are you going through, 20 times the amount of snacks because they're at home and they're just in there?
Yeah. We've already got, a Costco list going for where we need to go this weekend to go to Costco to get more snacks. Yeah. Popsicles. We can't keep those in the freezer. So, I think it's pretty normal from what I remember my summer vacations to be too.
I just had some of my son's popsicles the other day. So addicting. And then I was just brought right back to, like you said, being a kid, just eat 20 freeze pops in a sitting.
Yep. You know what I did yesterday when I turned on the splash pad and you turn on that hose water and it's just the smell of
the metal, metallic smell.
And the grass, there's nothing quite like that summer vibes from the hose water.
No, and Sarah and I were also saying that, it's sort of ingrained in you, for these 18 years of your life, right? You're from kind of birth to high school, that summer is supposed to be this break and this vacation time. And then you get to be an adult and you sort of are still thinking that, but it's actually not, because you're working 40 hours a week, but you feel as though you should be at the beach and then you have little children running around.
Funny because my sister was just visiting us yesterday. She was over for dinner and my kids were saying the same thing. When are you off? Why do you have to work tomorrow? Aren't you on summer break? And she was like, yeah, that's not how it works when you're a grown up. It was just depressing.
I do like summer. I do not like it. So I'm in Massachusetts and we're in a heat wave and it's been almost 100 degrees for days. And that's just too much. I do like summer, but I think once fall rolls around, I just really like the structure of it. Yeah. Things kind of feel just a little more organized. This morning I was getting coffee and at Starbucks, who should think about sponsoring this podcast. And I was just thinking, I'm like, you know what? If I was 17 or 18, I would have been chomping at the bit and I would have been driving up to the beach. It was every nice day that I wasn't doing something, that's what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And can't even remember the last time I was in the beach.
The good old glory days, you don't know you're in them until you're out of them and then
exactly
long for them. Yep.
Okay.
Now, did we age ourselves enough in that intro? Because I felt like we did.
Yes, my teens, which were 50 years ago. Anyway. Okay, so getting into today's topic, obviously, so essential dental revenue cycle management, like this is our wheelhouse, and claim submission and everything. So I want to talk about this topic in a few senses, like obviously how we are handling things, but also how, I'm handling things live in an office and how things can be set up successfully to run smoothly there, should you not need to outsource or want to outsource or whatever. So this is one of my favorite things to talk about. Sarah's too, I hope.
Yeah, who doesn't love talking about RCM? It's the best.
It is the best. So, but every time I start out this conversation, I just always feel like I'm just a broken record because it always starts with insurance verifications. I just say it too much. I don't even like to say it anymore, but that is like the birthplace of the revenue cycle. And they are so important for claim submission because they're really kicking everything off. So, Sarah, why don't you talk, if you're okay, if you want to, talk a little bit about like what are some good systems and like what we're doing at EDS for verifications and like how that's setting the office up for successful claim submission after, the patient comes in and has treatment.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people, when we think about verifications or getting like a breakdown of benefits, we're thinking like the benefit of these verifications is for the patient or for our conversations with the patient, right? We're thinking like, oh, we're getting percentages so that we can do accurate treatment planning so that the patient, feels like we know what we're talking about so we can collect day of service, blah, blah, blah. And that's certainly true. That is a function of verifications, is getting that information to be able to have those discussions with your patients. But arguably the more important part of a verification is making sure that you've got the insurance information correct. And insurance information being claims mailing address, correct payer ID so that your electronic claims are going to get through on the first time. Making sure the subscriber ID is correct, making sure you've got the patient date of birth in your practice management software correct, and making sure that that date of birth matches what the insurance company has. Like all of these little pieces of information are information that goes on the claim form as well, and any discrepancy in that information can create a delay in getting your claims processed. So for me, the importance of verifications is twofold. Yes, those patient communications, but also making sure that your claim is going to go out cleanly and accurately the first time. So good processes for this, planning ahead, I think, is probably the most important part of the process. We try to verify our clients' schedule about a week in advance because that usually gives us enough time to notice issues with people who have inaccurate plans, inactive plans, or the wrong information they gave us. A lot of times we see patients handing over their medical insurance card instead of their dental insurance card. So we think the claim needs to go to Aetna and really it needs to go to somewhere else. So
and also those patients are generally insistent that there is dental coverage on that.
Yes. I just saw in our account manager group chat just this week, a patient had sent in their prescription like drug card instead of their dental card. So, that happens all the time, and having, more lead time for you to kind of look into it and realize, oops, this isn't accurate. You got to reach back out to the patient to get the accurate information and still have time to do, a full and complete verification. So give yourself that time. Don't be rushing to do it day of and trying to scramble to put that pressure on yourself. The other thing when I was in office about verifications that I just refused to do the day of verifications is if the patient didn't get us their insurance information before their appointment, we told them they had to pay upfront in full for the visit. And that kind of I don't want to use the word threat, but that threat of having to pay in full for their visit usually motivated people to get us that information prior to them walking in the door, because nobody likes getting handed an insurance card 5 minutes before the appointment time and then having to scramble to do a verification while the patient's standing there staring at you, waiting for you to get the information back. So just set those systems and expectations up ahead of time and set yourself up for success with those. It doesn't have to be a last minute scramble if you're planning ahead and doing your due diligence about that kind of stuff.
And there's a lot that, you know, we're kind of doing and providing offices with, and, you know, offices are taking this information from the verification and using it in a variety of ways, whether that's to update fee schedules or coverage books or, you know, PMS information. But that's kind of a whole separate episode. So I just I mostly want to talk about that the insurance has like been verified. That is like the key, right?
Uh-huh.
And, you know, that they have remaining benefits left for this upcoming visit and that everything's accurate. And like Sarah said, I mean, I just came across the plan the other day where, you know, they couldn't find a child, and that was because the insurance company had a different birth date, and they had a different name for her dad than we did. So he went, I think his name was Douglas, but they had in Stanley as his first name. And, you know, one was his legal one and one was his middle name. And all of that, like, has to be accurate. And I always like to say, too, like, don't put nicknames in there. Don't put Liz as patient. It has to be the patient's legal name. And of course, there's in your software, there's a space for nicknames and preferred names. Put that there. Make sure you have, I see this a lot actually with offices. Make sure that's their legal name. And
like, wouldn't you rather find out about Doug versus Stanley or whatever when you're doing the verification, as opposed to having sent the claim in and done all this work and effort and then wait 30 days for the denial to come back to say that the name doesn't match? Like, just spend a few minutes doing it on the front end to save you tons of time on the back end.
Mm-hmm. And it's also, I've also found that patients, when they're standing in front of you and you're trying to like troubleshoot a plan, like they're oftentimes like, I can get on the phone with my insurance company right now. I'll go outside and call them. Or when you're trying to reach them, like Sarah said, after a claim has denied, it can be a little bit harder to get a hold of them at that point. I'm not saying they won't respond, but it's trickier. So we talk a lot about the heavy lifting being on the forefront, and that is exactly what verifications are. One of my personal pet peeves is not having the correct group name. Specifically when patients mark that, offices mark that as self. I have said to employees in office, you know, and our team at EDS, I don't ever want to see the group name of self. Okay, you need to find what that group name is, and make sure you have the group and subgroup number correct. Even though plans can vary within the same group number and subgroup
and even
number.
Though honestly some of those group numbers too, for those like Delta individual policies, the group number and the subgroup number can be like 20 or 25 digits long. Like, they are long. But just get them all. Get all 15 of those zeros in the middle, because they're all going to matter at some point.
Right. Looking at you, Guardian. So, all right. So next, the actual like claim submission. Clean claim submission and what that kind of means and looks like and what we're looking for. So in office, and, you know, at the offices that I've worked at, the providers, you know, hygiene and the doctors are putting in the treatment that they actually did. And at the front office, and I know this varies a little bit, the front office is kind of, you know, submitting the claim. And before those claims all got submitted, me as the office manager, I would comb through the schedule and, you know, just make sure that everything made sense. So I'm looking at production for the entire day by provider. So if I'm seeing like 13 MOD got walked out under a hygienist. Okay, well, that's an obvious glaring red flag. I'll go in and change that. You're looking for duplicate claims. I also think it's a good idea. And then also, like, I'm matching up clinical notes to what's walked out in their ledger, you know, what this claim is, making sure that those match. I also think it's a good idea for you to be printing these reports and having your providers look them over, because I mean, many, many, many times, or you know, maybe you don't have to print them. They can be electronic too. Many times hygienists would say, oh, I only did 4 bite wings, or I didn't do bite wings. That was old, or whatever it might be. They're catching errors there. I like many eyes looking this over before claims go out. That's so important because, again, it's kind of like the heavy lifting on the forefront. And that way it's not, oh, that crown accidentally got walked out as the wrong tooth. And then you're not, you know, submitting a claims correction. This whole thing, like, so much can be avoided by doing this. So when I was in office, I would actually print out a schedule, a paper schedule, and then I would go in, I had a Sharpie, I would check off each patient as I was like looking through the provider production list, made sure everybody was accounted for. That way, you know, I saw if one patient wasn't on there, something wasn't, you know, walked out and submitted, or obvious, like, glaring issues like I already mentioned, or, you know, maybe something was walked out under the wrong hygienist or provider. It just different things like that. It all kind of came to light then. And then, like I said, obviously having the actual providers take a look at their list and see if they see any errors.
Yeah. The very first office that I ever worked in when it was in dental was a very Medicaid heavy office, and they were very fastidious about checking their walkouts and making sure that the information that was going on those claim forms was accurate and that they were billing out everything that they could without overbilling and everything. And, you know, at the time, obviously being new to dental and being young, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so annoying. Why do we have to do all of this? Now I look back and I'm like, those are actually really good systems that they had in place for making sure that things were going out correctly the first time. And now, obviously, knowing more about the details of Medicaid and Medicaid billing, I understand why they were being so diligent about checking that. But they were using route slips, which, you know, I know a lot of offices have moved away from route slips these days. It's a lot of paper to print, but it was like they would print the services as it was in the appointment on the route slip, and then the assistant would make adjustments to the route slip, and the assistant would have to initial to make sure that the services that were on the route slip were accurate, and then the doctor had to initial it, and then they brought the route slip up to us at the front, and then at the front we would initial it too. So it was like a 3-step process of making sure everybody had eyes on it, and all along the way, you know, we were aware of who was responsible for checking it and who had actually done it. So that, you know, might be a little overkill for most offices probably, but, you know, I would say find the system that works for you to make sure that you've got enough checks and balances in place that things aren't going out the door inaccurately. The other thing I would caution, just from my personal experience in office, is like, make sure that you're not leaving this duty of checking the claims and checking the procedures and everything to one person. You know, more eyes, more people checking on it, the better. And also, that one person is allowed to take vacation, is allowed to have a sick day. And when they do, the whole thing can't come crashing to the ground. The whole office can't come to a halt because the office manager's gone. So make sure that, you know, more than one person knows how to do the job and knows what's needed and all of that fun stuff as well.
Right. So part of for whomever was closing the office, you know, at the front, they had some duties to do. One was to make sure that we reconciled the checks that we had, matched the checks that were the total amount that was in the practice management software. One was that the schedule was checked. Like I said, that paper paper schedule was printed in the morning, me as the office manager, I would go through again and double check all of those, the schedule and also the bank slip.
Yeah. And I think another thing too is like, don't feel rushed to get your claims sent out same day. Like,
right.
If your claims wait until the next morning because that gives you a little bit more time to like check things over, that's okay. I mean, don't be waiting 2 weeks to send them out, but if it's the next morning, like that's all right. Give yourself that time on the front end to make sure they're going out well on the back end, and it's going to be worth all of that, 12-hour delay is going to be worth it every time.
Absolutely. I feel like sometimes, especially, now that we're in the age of electronic claims, people get a little click happy. It's like middle of the day, they're sending the claims from that morning. Nothing's been checked. That's just how errors happen. And there is really not going to be that big of a payment delay with a 12-hour window there. So speaking of electronic claims, we want to talk a little bit about some useful tools. And I think we're probably going to talk about one in particular, which is clearing houses. And the one we are utilizing the most is vine trellis, with the majority. Well, I don't know if the majority of our clients use them. Would you say that?
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay. We definitely have some on various ones, but okay. I love Vine so much. It's so user friendly. It is so easy to stay organized, and also it just keeps improving. And so one feature that I really love is, everyone knows you have to send attachments with a lot of claims. So in particular, x-rays. So they have this awesome tool called Image Sync, which is powered by Pearl. And I'm not positive this is compatible with every single software. I always talk in like EagleSoft terms. So it is with EagleSoft. And that automatically pulls in patient x-rays. And so you don't have to like go back and forth between screens. You just hit that image sync button and the x-rays pop up. You choose the x-ray which you want to be, or x-rays if there's multiple, that you want to be sending along with that claim. It automatically populates the date, and it's just such a time saver. It's amazing. I love it so much. And it just, when all your claims are sitting in there, when they've been imported from your practice management software, any claim that has an error, for the most part, is going to pop up there. It alerts you when there's dual coverage, so you can go grab your primary EOB. It alerts you when almost immediately after claims are submitted, when a claim is rejected for any reason, whether that's because coverage is inactive or there's a coding issue or, anything like that. And you can correct them right there and send them off again. So I just could go on and on about it. I just love it so much because I've used other ones that are just, the whole interface is just very good looking, and like I said, easy to use for even people who don't consider themselves very computer savvy. So sometimes when we see that offices are still doing paper claims, I'm just like, why in the world would you be doing that when like Vine is just ready to
well, and I think, the point that I wanted to bring into this too is like, if you're using a clearinghouse, whether it be Vine or whether it be something else, and it just doesn't feel like it's working for you, like you find yourself constantly being like, oh, I hate when I have to do this, or, oh, it's so obnoxious that I have to do this. First, I would say like, reach out to the clearinghouse that you're using, like reach out to their support and say, I'm doing this way. Is there a better way to do it? And if they say no, and that is still something that adds like a ton of time to your day or adds a ton of frustration to your day, explore other options for that tool. Like there are many players in the game for most services that we use for, dental billing these days. So if something's not working for you, explore other options. Like there's certainly another alternative that you could try that might make your life easier. And that's kind of the most important part, right? Like reduce all of the barriers that exist for you to get these claims out cleanly. And if you dread every time you have to open up your clearinghouse because you hate using it, like that's not going to make you want to get clean claims out. So, use your tools, use them to their fullest advantage, click around in there, find out what other things are there. I think, people might not even realize that the image sync is an option until you kind of click around, or if you're not following Vine on social media or whatever, like you gotta unbury your head from the sand a bit and take a step back to say, like, just because this is how we've always done things doesn't mean that I need to keep doing them that way, especially if that way is not working for me. So definitely utilize all of those tools and utilize them to their fullest potential to make your life easier.
For sure. I remember years ago, I was submitting claims for an office in Washington, Sarah's state, and they were a Medicaid office, and I was getting an error on Vine that like I wasn't able to, submit these Medicaid claims through their clearinghouse. So I was manually submitting them on the state Medicaid on the state Medicaid website. So line item by line item, every single one. I mean, luckily this is a small office. It didn't take me very long and I got very good at it. But then one day I was talking to someone at Vine and they were like, "Oh no, that's just because Medicaid offices, you need kind of this form and then we can get it synced to where you can submit them through Vine." And I'm like, Mind blown. Yes.
Exactly.
Mind blown. And that was a game changer. So if you're getting some kind of error, like don't ignore it. Just call and they will help you. And whomever that is, it doesn't, even if it's not Vine. Yep. There always, I always kind of find that most customer service is so helpful and they can show you different features that you didn't even know. They can show you kind of how to streamline this whole system. And like Sarah said, make everything work for you. We're in an age where there's just so many great softwares out there that are built to help you. And if they're not, it's time to look around.
Yep. And I think, I don't know, this is one of my qualities, and whether it's good or bad, I don't know. I guess we could debate on that. But when I don't like taking that's just how it is, or that's just what we have to do for an answer. So if I've got something that's not working for me, I'm going to do a little research. I'm going to poke around. I'm going to try to figure it out, because more than likely there is a solution that's going to work better or work the way that you need it to. You just have to be willing to investigate. And I have a note on this section too about using these tools to their fullest potential when it comes to portals. We see this a lot with our billing team too, is like we've got portals that just don't work, or the login doesn't work, we can't get access, or somehow the portal is set up as, you need admin access and you're set up as whatever, employee access or something. And it's like, it's always been set up like that. People always run into this roadblock and then they just give up and pick up the phone and call the insurance because that's just easier at the time. But wouldn't it just be easier for you to pick up the phone, call the insurance to get that portal adjusted, to get the login changed, to reset the password, to do whatever you need to do that one time instead of having to pick up the phone and call every time? Like, I know it seems like a pain in the neck, but do it one time and then make your life easier forever moving forward. Like, just take the time to do those things to make them better and make them work for you.
People get so stuck in their long workarounds that take so much time rather than just addressing the issue.
Yep.
Oh, that login's never worked. We just can't get onto that insurance company.
Exactly. Oh. No, that's not the answer.
Exactly. All right. So strong systems for follow-ups, claim follow-ups. This is definitely our arena, and we are very organized with this for sure. And, in this digital day and age, claims should not be taking longer than 30 days to pay. I mean, 30 days is generous.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I certainly know there's some strange plans out there and different delays and things like that. But in general, as a blanket statement,
Mm-hmm.
when I see like electronic submission, I mean, claims can pay in, especially if you're a day, or if you're signed up for EFT, and if you're doing paper check, I mean, a week, 10 days tops.
Yep.
So following up on outstanding claims, I'll let Sarah kind of talk a little bit about what we're doing, which is, obviously that's from an outsourcing perspective, but it certainly works for an in-office situation as well. Yeah.
First and foremost is make sure that you are running your reports from your practice management software regularly. So when I was in office, this was weekly. We had like a day of the week that we always ran outstanding claims, like, Thursday. Every Thursday we ran the outstanding claims report. So we've always got an up-to-date, accurate list that we're working from of claims that need to be checked on. And choosing a time frame that works for you to start checking on them, even though we just said most claims shouldn't take longer than 30 days to process, I personally don't start checking claims until they're at the 30-day mark, just because legally that's what insurance companies have. I feel like it's kind of 6 one way, half dozen the other on if you start checking them earlier, might you be wasting some time checking on claims that have already processed or are going to process? Yes. Might you catch some earlier? Like, I don't know. I guess it depends on what you've got the staff capacity for, right?
Right.
Like, if your claims list isn't crazy and you can start getting a jump start on them earlier than 30 days, maybe that works. But for us, for all of our clients, we set the 30-day mark. So run those reports for claims that are older than 30 days and follow up on them. That's why we did the report once a week, is because then that gave us a week to check on all of the claims on the list, touch all of them, get details on all of them, make resubmissions, make changes, add attachments, do whatever they needed to do, and then follow up within, depending on what we had to do with them, follow up within 10 to 14 days. Sometimes insurance companies will give you that time frame and say, we need 5 business days to reprocess this. Then great, you should be following up in 5 business days. But sometimes they need 2 weeks to process, or whatever the case may be. Follow up in 2 weeks. Set those systems, set those time frames, know what's going on with every single claim, and make sure that you're documenting everything. Mm-hmm. Can't touch on that enough. Every single phone call, every single portal pull, every single piece of information that you can get about that claim and about your follow-ups on that claim need to be documented. And, we utilize a lot of spreadsheets with our clients, which is great, but those documentation notes also need to be in the PMS. Everything needs to be in the PMS, accessible to everyone and anyone who opens up that claim, and attached to that patient record always. So making sure that you're doing that. And also having a system in place for when you're going to try a different mode of connecting with the insurance company, right? So when I personally am working outstanding claims, my first step always is to check the portal and see if the claim's on file and if I can get information. If I can't get it there, I'm checking the clearinghouse to see, did it go out successfully from the clearinghouse? Do I have proof that it went out from the clearinghouse? Okay, and then calling after that. So I think trying to figure out a method for getting that information that is streamlined, efficient, but also recognizing that at some point you might just have to pick up the phone and call, as much as you don't want to do that.
What I was going to ask is I feel like every time I've called, they're like, please allow 60 days for reprocessing. Oh. Where are you? Who's telling you 5?
Yeah. I don't know. 60 days is pretty outrageous, but
I agree. So some practice management softwares are way better than others at making claim notes and things. Open Dental is way better than, I think, Eaglesoft. So
what did you just admit that?
We've got it on record. No, I totally totally know Open Dental is a way better software than EagleSoft. I just loved EagleSoft so much.
Yeah.
But we keep spreadsheets for, a multitude of reasons, of course, for our benefit, but most of it is for our clients and for them to be able to check to see what we're doing and look there. If they're looking into something themselves, they can kind of start and see what our progress is with something.
Well, and also because, like you said, some practice management softwares don't facilitate this like list view very easily either. So, you can run your list in EagleSoft, but then most EagleSoft offices that I know honestly are printing and handwriting on that claims list, and that is just not always the most efficient way to do it, in this day and age.
No, for sure. Yeah, and even just no. I just no. Importing it or exporting it, I should say, to a spreadsheet form. And on our spreadsheet, we have columns for, follow-up 1, follow-up 2, follow-up 3, final decision. Obviously, we're color coding this and things are getting changed certain colors depending on their status and then when they're closed out. So a strong system for this and a schedule. So if this is in office, maybe you can do that depending on your size. Maybe you can do it Tuesdays and Fridays or whatever might work for you. Just make sure it's on there, make sure it's happening, and you're staying on top of things, and with timely filing limits changing like the wind. You want to be sure that you are staying on top of things. And if you do have records of that initial submission and you need to kind of appeal a claim, you have that record. So
also, this is one thing where I do think it is beneficial in office to have one person kind of manning this job, just because then it's easier for them to remember, oh, I remember this phone call, or oh, I know what's going on with this claim. But just like we touched on before, make sure that more than one person knows how to do it. Like just because they're the person that's responsible for it most frequently doesn't mean that they're the only one that knows how to do it. I've mentioned this before, but I worked in an office where our insurance coordinator, had a crazy accident and that had her out of the office for like 6 weeks. And so if we let our outstanding claims go unworked for 6 weeks just because she was out, that's a huge backlog of claims that she's going to have to come back to, but also that we're just sitting on waiting for follow-up and waiting for payment. So just make sure that other people in the office know the process and know how it works and know where to look for those notes in case somebody ever needs to step in, or in case things happen and things do get backlogged. Maybe your insurance coordinator needs some help. People can pitch in and make a call or two or check the portals or whatever if other people have downtime to help out.
So your last weapon, or our last topic here, is utilizing your patients. And hopefully offices are doing this, and it doesn't always have to be like a last ditch effort, but there are just times when you have to reach out to a patient and say, we have like exhausted all efforts here trying to get this claim to pay, and you feel as though it's obviously a claim that should be paid and the insurance company is giving you a hard time. We need your help. We need you to call your insurance company. We need you to contact HR at your employer, and we need you to try to help us get this paid. And generally, I haven't ever come across a patient that was not willing to do this, specifically when they know if insurance doesn't pay, it's all on them. So they're usually willing to get on the phone here. And I've also just seen a very high amount of success with this. When both the office and the patient is contacting the insurance company, I honestly can't think of a time where this didn't work. So
I will also say you want to make sure your systems are in place so you don't find yourself on the opposite end of this, which I have been in office, which is where a patient or I get a call from an insurance company with the patient on the other line, and the insurance company is the one trying to follow up on some information that we needed to send back, or some documentation that wasn't included, and that's why the claim wasn't processed, or something like that. Like, you want to make sure that the patient knows that you are competent in what you're doing, and that you're doing everything that you can to get these claims processed for them. So staying on top of your outstanding claims list, make sure that the patient doesn't go about it themselves. But if they do, like you said, that's helping out. It's helping out some, but also you want to make sure you're on top of things, so you can say, oh yeah, I got that documentation and I sent it back on XX date, and here's the note from it, and here's the NEA number, and whatever. So just making sure that you're staying on top of it from that standpoint too is a wise choice.
I always love the phone calls with the insurance company and the patients on like third party.
Mm-hmm. Fun times.
Or so I mean, having your notes, and oh no, I see right here we submitted that documentation you were looking for last week. And just as a side note, I love when patients would be like, could you code that differently? Or like, you didn't code that right.
The insurance company said you put the wrong code.
Yes. And then if they somehow come up with an alternative code that they would like you to use, just being told how to do your job by someone not in the field.
Well, what I like is when they say, yeah, the insurance company says you used the wrong code. So then I call the insurance company and I'm like, okay, the patient relayed this information to me, said that, you think there's an error in the coding. What code do you think that we should be using?
And they won't tell you.
We can't give you that information. Oh, okay, great.
Okay, yes. I'll just play code roulette until perhaps this claim pays. So I think that is about it. I mean, those are like our top tips for clean claim submission. And like I said, we could have dove a little deeper into various topics in there, but implementation is key. We talk about that a lot, making sure you have a schedule for verifications, in whatever service or whatever you're utilizing for it. You know how far ahead you want to be verifying. You're giving yourself time to make corrections to those verifications that come back with some kind of error. You are looking over your claims, hopefully by more than one person, to make sure everything looks accurate there. So heavy lifting on the forefront to ensure a predictable outcome, which is claims being paid the first time and quickly. Utilizing software and portals to its fullest potential, fixing errors with portals and software so that it's working for you, not against you. Strong systems for follow-up, schedules, again, making sure this is on your to-do list for certain days of the week, or, times of the month, however it might work for your office. Just making sure it's on there, it's getting done, and someone is assigned to it. If it's everyone's job, it's like kind of no one's job. So assign this to someone, or, an individual or two, however you need to split things up. But
yeah. And I think the other thing that I would add to that is just accepting the fact that this, the RCM process is never going to be something that you can kind of like set it and forget it. Like, as much as we wish that things could run on autopilot and we could just plug in patient information and the claim will go and everything will be hunky-dory, like, it's just not the reality of the situation of working with insurances. Like, you're always going to have to put in some effort. You're always going to have to put in some time and energy to chase these things down. Even if you have a perfectly accurate verification, even if you have a perfectly clean claim, things still get denied. Things still get lost in never land of whatever electronic claim submission. So unfortunately, it's always going to be something that's going to take some work and some effort, but the reward on the back end is going to be, timely payments and a clean claim list, and all of that is going to be worth the effort that you put in.
And quite frankly, Sarah and I talk a lot about how we just think the revenue cycle is the most important thing in the dental office, which I stand by that. But quite frankly, this is your bread and butter. This is your livelihood. This is millions of dollars that we're talking about, depending on your practice size, but, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. You need to make sure that is getting paid the attention that it deserves. And when claims get messed up, I will tell you, there's no, well, I don't want to say there's no better way, but it's a very easy way to get a patient mad and get a patient to leave your office. People do not like it, rightfully so. People do not like when their money is messed with or they feel as though something is amiss there, rightfully so. I'm always combing over my medical bills with a monocle. And people just, patients want to know that they can entrust you to make sure that they're maximizing their insurance dollars and
well, and the doctors want to, our doctors and our employers and everybody wants to know that we're, making sure that the bills get paid, the office bills get paid and the lights stay on and people stay paid in the office. The ramifications of getting these claims paid and being on top of your revenue cycle it trickles down to every aspect of the practice. So keeping the patients happy, keeping your doctor happy, keeping employees paid, keeping the bills paid, all of it stems from making sure that we've got those verifications done. So can't impress on you the importance of it, enough. It's a pretty important process to stay on top of.
I think sometimes when we're doing big cleanup projects for offices and, the doctor contacts us and they haven't ran any reports in years or if ever. And they, kind of just see, well, I'm getting paid and I'm getting paid well. And I just didn't realize there was an issue. And now whatever the circumstance might be, something has come to light. It's yes. You could have had $60,000 more a year, but that's a lot of money. I don't care who you are or how much you're making. $60,000. I'm just throwing a number out there, but in cleanup projects that we're doing, it's often a large amount of money that's being written off for various reasons, for it just not being collectible from the insurance or the patient. And we talk a lot about doctors have to, you got to run a report here and there, and someone needs to have some checks and balances, even if you trust your insurance coordinator and office manager fully. It's just, this is your practice and your money, and quite frankly, $60,000 is, a year or two of college tuition, and I don't think we should be flushing that down the toilet because you didn't want to take 2 seconds to run a report.
Totally.
Oh, okay. All right. That was a little bit of a tangent at the end, but that's one of our favorite things to do. We like to talk about revenue cycle management and also go on tangents.
Exactly. Right. Well, that's, if you've been here, if you've listened to more than one episode, then you know that that's what you're getting yourself into.
Hopefully that's what people are here for. I don't know. But okay. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode.
Bye, guys.
Bye.